Thank you so much for coming. I am always so delighted to be here and so delighted to be of service. And there's nothing I like more than sharing information. And that's really what it is, because it's not all my stuff. It's a whole bunch of people's stuff. And I just like to share it. The main purpose of sharing the information is to remind us how powerful we truly are and how much we are affecting everything. Our thoughts, I can't even talk today, not good. We need to watch what we wish for. We need to watch what is in our minds all the time, because we are affecting everything. We're not just affecting ourselves, we're affecting the animals, we're affecting the world, because we are in a fishbowl of life. And I always like to think of it that way, in the sense that energy just goes out and out and out, and it just keeps going, because we know energy never dies. And we know that our words are powerful. We know they affect water, and we're a whole pile of water, and so they affect everything else as well, and we know that. It's been proven. And the vibration we create with our thoughts and actions, like I said, affect the whole world. And it's amazing how they actually affect animals. Animals are reading us all the time, and I didn't even know this till this last little while. And I have a cat who has a zillion allergies, and it's very hard to find food that he can eat. And when he doesn't get food that he's supposed to have, he breaks out. And so many times I would be lying in bed, he would be all snuggled up with me, and I'd think, I need to get up and put some cream on his owies. Cat is gone. Gone. Under the bed, in the closet, wherever. So one day I decided to play a game. Okay, while I get up, I'm gonna be saying, Mary had a little lamb. So in my mind I said, Mary had a little lamb, this beast was white as snow, and off I went to get the ointment, and I came back and the cat was still there. Yeah. So they do know what we're thinking. And a really amazing story about that is there's a story about a black panther that had just arrived at an amazing sanctuary. And it would not come out of its little cougar house or cat house. It wouldn't come out. It hadn't come out for months. They'd have to take the food and put it in, because otherwise it would have just starved to death. So finally someone suggested they get an animal communicator. Well, the owner of the sanctuary thought that was a really lunatic idea, but you know, what the heck. They were going to volunteer doing it, so it wasn't going to cost him anything. So she comes and she goes and sits with the panther, sits outside the pen talking to the panther. And she comes to the owner of the sanctuary and she says, I've told him it's safe. I've told him he can come out now. I've told him that this is a really good place and he's really lucky to be here. And he told me he doesn't like his name. And she said, but he also wants to know what happened to the kittens that were in the pen beside him when you rescued him. Well, the owner of the sanctuary almost fell over, because he knew she didn't know about those kittens. And there were kittens in the pen beside him. And so he says, well, you go talk to him again and tell him the kittens are fine. They got a really good home. So the next day, the owner of the sanctuary goes and stands outside the pen, and he says, well, I'm gonna call you Spirit. And the panther roars. And then he says, you are the most beautiful cat I have ever seen in my life. And the panther roars. And he says, I'm so grateful to have you here. You really are a blessing. And the panther roars. So a couple of weeks later, the communicator comes back. Oh, I forgot to say, the panther came out of his home within 4 hours of her leaving. And so the communicator comes back, and she goes and talks to the panther, and she comes to the owner, and she said, he wants you to know that he roared every time you gave him a compliment. Now tell me, was that not vibrations? That animal was picking up on the vibration of his words. I mean, and what are words? Words are vibrations focused in action. That's what they are. And when I teach a class on my book, The Power of Choice, I always do muscle testing, because I want to show people how things in their environment affect them. And so I had them all in paper bags, and I didn't even know which was which. I just numbered the bags. Actually, I had someone else do that, and I would just do testing. And so there was 2 things that tested very uniquely. And one thing tested really strong, and the other tested really weak. And so the strong one happened to be the movie 50 First Dates. And I think it was strong because if you really think about that movie, it tells a story of a young lady that has no memory, and this gentleman wants to be with her, so he figures out a way to do it. And to me, the movie's saying you can do anything if you really want to be creative. He had it so she woke up in the morning, she pressed a button that said press here, and she saw a video of her family because she couldn't remember from the day before. And so that's how he solved that situation, and that tested really good. By the end of testing everyone, the young people that were with me said, I'm scared to look in that bag because it must be really evil because everybody tested terrible with it. And I said, well, let's see. And it was real footage of the Second World War. And so it is so important what we have. There's ways we can protect ourselves, from things that are around us. And I've talked about this before, the pink bubble. We can put ourselves in a pink bubble. And if we envision a pink bubble around us, all the good can get in and all the good can get out, but it protects us from negativity. In the 70s, they actually did a thing on plants, and these university students wanted to see if plants had emotion. Now, was there any reaction with plants? So they found somebody who just loved their plants. They had a zillion plants, and it was their favorite thing to do, was to take care of them. So they decided to pretend that they roughed her up. So people came in and pretended they beat her up. And then they waited, and they brought all kinds of different people into the home. And when those people who pretended to rough her up showed up, the plants gave off a vibration that could have been considered a scream. The vibration totally and completely changed. In the 80s, there were a few universities that did an experiment with food. And there was a gentleman who did the same number and weight of bananas every single day. It was weighed, it was measured, his activity was measured, everything had to be the same. He lost and gained 10 pounds at will. So the times that he would say, I'm gonna lose 10 pounds, he lost 10 pounds. The times he said he was gonna gain 10 pounds, he gained 10 pounds. Dr. Bernie Siegel is a very well-known, he's now passed away, was a very well-known oncologist. And he was very stunned by his patients. He would say they had 6 months to live, and some of them died in 6 months, just like they were told to. And other ones, they decided no, they were very ornery. And they were the ones that wanted to get up, and they wanted to get dressed, and they wanted to go to a movie, and they wanted to do all this stuff, and they drove him crazy. But what he noticed was they lived way longer. So he was trying to figure out, what's going on here? So he realized what Ernest Holmes realized many years ago, that these people were choosing their thoughts, and the ones that chose the positive thoughts and picked up the positive vibration were also the ones that lived longer, or just plain didn't even die anytime soon. Lived many years, sometimes their cancer just went into remission. But one time, he had this young guy, and this young guy was just the nicest guy. He was a hippie, and he did meditation, and he just loved, words, and he was positive, even though he had this terminal cancer. And he was just great, but he wasn't getting better. And he was coming to all the classes, and he was doing the meditations, and Dr. Bernie Siegel just couldn't figure out what's going on with this guy. I know he's doing it. And this is a little story to tell us that we have to do what works for us. So they get together, Bernie makes time for him so he can talk to him, and he says, why aren't you getting better? And the guy gets very sheepish, and he says, well, I'm a pacifist. And he said, I can't even shoot cancer cells. You told me to shoot them, and I can't. I just can't. And so Bernie says to him, well, you know what? I want you to imagine you're picking them up and you're tossing them out of your body. So he did. Guess what? he got better. And the cancer went into remission. Another thing that just tells us how important our thoughts are is I saw this little girl had done an experiment about microwave water. And the experiment was, I'm gonna grow something in a couple of types of water, and one was filtered water, one was microwave water, one was tap water. And she decided she was gonna grow a potato sprout. So when I heard this, of course, the result was the microwave water killed the potato. So I got to thinking about that, and I thought, they say the experimenter's thoughts affect the experiment. So I'm thinking, well, she expected the potato to die, because otherwise she wouldn't have done the experiment, because it was for a science class. So I phoned my friend in Canada, and I said, do you want to do an experiment with me? I want to grow some potatoes. So she picked 3, I picked 3. We used blessed water, tap water, and microwave water. And we really had no attachment to the result, none. It didn't really matter to us what happened. Well, mine grew equally until my cats ate them. My friends kept growing, and her biggest and bestest was in the microwave water. So what I personally believe, and it doesn't have to appeal to everybody else, is that what we think about stuff is the most important thing about it. What we put in our mouth. There's a lot of studies done around the 60s that truly believed that the reason we gained weight when we ate sweets is we were told we would. And I gotta say that when I'm eating a donut, I'm kind of thinking of the 5 pounds that's gonna go on my hips. I'm trying to get out of that thinking, but I grew up with Twiggy. And I never was a relative of hers at all, no matter how hard I tried. And so we're brainwashed in so many ways. And I really do believe that what's most important about what we put in our mouths is what we think about it. And what's most important about what we're trying to achieve is what we think about it. Ernest Holmes and Louise Hay always say one of the main problems we have as people is that we do not believe we deserve. And that pretty much wipes out a whole bunch of stuff right there. So that's why all of Louise's classes, I'm a Heal Your Life teacher for Louise Hay's work, they all teach us to love ourselves. Because if we don't believe we deserve, we're not going to get anything. And that's why Ernest Holmes says he can only do for us what he can do through us. So we have to have that vibration of receptivity. Or no matter what we pray for, no matter what we treat for, we're not going to get it. We have to be open and ready to receive it. Because each and every one of us deserves all good things, just because we exist. That's all we need to do. And another, let me just here. So we know, like I said before, what we believe becomes our truth, no matter how untrue it might be. So if we believe the microwave water is going to kill us, guess what? It will. If we believe that soda is going to kill us, yep, it will too. We are, like even in the Bible it says, you are done to as you believe. And that is just so incredibly true. And like I said earlier, one way to protect yourself from negative stuff is to put yourself in your pink bubble. And where I actually got to thinking about the environment so much is Wayne Dyer tells a story of he took his kids' really negative music and he tested them with it. And his sons at that time were football players. And he found if they were holding tight to the music, he could just put their arm up and down, one finger. And so they actually quit listening to it because they decided it really wasn't for them. But again, what would have happened if they believed it was okay? There's another whole whole talk right there, because it's really, really hard to know, isn't it? And so that's when I started to think, maybe things in our environment matter. Well, Wayne Dyer was given a holy book by one of the many holy people and masters that he hung out with. And he said to the master, as soon as I can, I will read it. And the master said, it doesn't matter. You never have to read it. Just have it near you. And so I thought that was extremely interesting, and that's what got me really interested in what happens with stuff around us. And yes, it can affect us, and it does affect us if we let it. But see, that's a whole other thing. Again, if we believe that we are in a happy space and we are protected and we are positive, guess what? That's what we'll be. So our minds are so incredibly powerful. They can do anything, and we can do anything. We just need to set our intention and set our thoughts to equal it, to match it, and we have to open our hearts to receive. That is the most important out of all these stories. But it does show that we affect animals. I wonder how animals feel if we talk negatively about them in our head. That was kind of sad. But they probably are understanding us. I mean, I had an experience, my very first animal client. I went up to White Rock Rescue, and I asked if I could read for one of her horses, and when she filled out a page, it was the first day that I ever decided to try to do it. And so she said, oh sure, you don't go to that one over there, he's new. And I said, okay. So I went there, and it was my brand new first time, and I'm thinking, okay, what am I getting? I want to be called by my name. And I'm thinking, well, that's kind of rubbish, because all these girls are petting this horse, they're brushing this horse, they're calling him Joey, and all is well. And I'm thinking, okay, well, that's not so good. The next one I get is, I don't like men. I'm thinking, well, no, that could be true, I guess. That's all I got. I sat there longer, nothing. Because I started with, do you have anything you need me to know that I can help you with? Well, I get down to Isabel, the lady who runs the rescue, and I said, well, I don't think it worked very good. I said, first of all, he said he wanted to be called by his name. And I said, they're all calling him by his name. And she said, this always makes me want to cry. She said, we changed his name 2 weeks ago.
Wow.
I said, you're kidding me, right? He really was talking to me? He really did tell me that? And she says, yeah, he hates men. So she sold him to a man, and the man had to bring him back. He was so horrifically behaved. She sold him to a woman, and that was the end of the story for her, and the beginning of a wonderful story for him. So thank you so much for your time, and I hope you enjoyed my stories, and have an amazing day.
Thank you.